Welcome to the Challenges of Change, the podcast where we explore the transformative journey towards self-improvement and personal growth. I'm your host, Laura, a mindset coach in the health and fitness industry, here to guide you through the hurdles that life throws at you. In each episode, we'll delve into practical strategies and insightful discussions to help you manage stress, regulate your emotions, upgrade your mindset, and ultimately reclaim your sense of worth. I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey of change, challenges, and self-discovery. Do you want to know how to stop feeling controlled by your emotions? Then this one is for you. Welcome back to the Challenges of Change, where today we're going to dig into emotions, specifically hard emotions, on how to not feel manipulated or controlled by them. We're going to talk about the purpose of emotions, and not just from a cultural understanding or our preference, but actually a biological purpose of our emotions. We're going to talk about the truth we don't really look at around where intelligence lies in our body and our brain, and how we can use more intelligence, which typically sets us up for more success. What happens when we resist emotions and how that plays into feeling controlled and manipulated by our emotions, and then how to become the CEO of your emotions. So if any of that sounds good to you, let's do this thing. So I want to give you some context, some insights around my experience with life. Growing up, I was very athletic, and because of that, I ended up breaking 9 different bones. Now, it wasn't an enjoyable experience, but I learned a lot from my experience breaking bones. One of the things that I learned, despite feeling like the main problem I had with every bone I broke is I couldn't keep playing the sport that I was playing. I wanted to compete. I wanted to play with my friends. That was where a lot of joy lived for me. And when I broke a bone, couldn't do that. So I was angry. I was frustrated. I was annoyed. I was scared. But what I learned through that process was every time I broke a bone, I came back. It's hard for a moment, but it's not the end of the world. And sometimes I actually came back stronger, and I learned more about myself. I understood more about my body. But I think most importantly, I learned more about my limits, as in where and how I can push my body and where and how I can't push my body. Now, I know that might not seem true given I've broken 9, but they were all in very different contexts. So was that fun? No, it was actually quite painful, both physically and emotionally and psychologically. But I can't tell you how many times I still reflect on the value, especially today. Or let me give you another example. When I first started my business, the school that I went to for coaching taught a very specific way of onboarding people that made me feel like I was manipulating them, and that made me feel icky. And I kept noticing this energy drain, this resistance, this frustration. And what was really coming up for me was a fear of failure. I know you've never felt that before. JK. What ended up happening is I was toying in my head of like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should just go back to training. I wasn't sleeping well. I was scared and uncomfortable and uncertain. I didn't know what to do. I just spent all this money. It was COVID. How do I survive? And I was fortunate enough to meet someone who was a coach who was further along in her journey, who asked me a very simple question. When I told her what I was struggling with and why I was struggling, she said, okay, I see what's happening. Who do you need to be to yourself in your business so if your business fails, you'll be okay? And I said, I don't want my business to fail. And she said, I know, but you're so afraid of it failing, you're not giving it a chance to live. And that made so much sense. I had to play her game. And when I thought about following their way and my business failing, I felt shame. But when I thought about doing things my way, following my moral compass and letting my business run its course, and if it failed, I was at peace. That 3-month period where I was trying to figure out, do I stay here? Do I not? Had I not had the fortune of meeting a coach who was a little further ahead of me, who was generous enough with her time to ask me a simple question, one, I don't even know if I'd be a coach right now. But more importantly, she gave me a North Star for the rest of my business, for the rest of its life. And I think even more important than that, actually, is how I get to experience my business. Rather than feeling so attached and so tied around the survival of it for my own way of living, I can build this in a way that leaves it as its own entity that isn't a definition of me, but a space to help people. I get to enjoy my work versus feeling victim to the business I created. I learned so much through those 3 months, and it still helps me dictate and determine how I want to navigate things. Or I'll give you one more example. There's a time period where my husband and I were trying to grow something in our relationship. I had a certain timeline. He had a different timeline. He wanted things to start in a certain way. I agreed until a certain set point. That set point came and went, and he didn't get on board. And I was trying to be patient because I knew that he was scared. I've been scared. I would want someone to treat me with patience. But that patience continued to get overextended and overextended and overextended. And I started to feel neglected and disrespected. That impatience that turned into neglect, that was me overextending my own boundary. And it's probably one of the more painful and more important lessons that I've learned in my life. I, like many of you, prefer the happy-go-lucky moments of our life where we are enjoying things, where we're riding down Rainbow Lane into Unicornville. I mean, I am at least. And when I think about those moments, they bring me joy. I feel lightness in my chest, but they are not the ones that have given me the most purpose. They are not the ones who mean the most. They're not the ones who defined me the most. But I think most importantly, they're not the ones that help me understand who I am, what I'm capable of, and how to like navigate the challenges of life. All of those lessons came through hard emotions, but yet we still feel controlled by them and manipulated by them. So let's look at the biological purpose of our emotions. They live in a part of our brain called the motivational triad that is in the midbrain, meaning its purpose is to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. That is like the motivational script of all of our emotions. We label them happy, sad, angry, anxiety, stress, whatever we call them. But each of those emotions is trying to motivate us. That is the whole freaking purpose, to motivate us to get purpose, to add meaning, to learn something, to move towards something or move away from something, to conserve energy or exert energy. But we have to be wise enough to decode the messages. But because we live in this culture that didn't create an emotional understanding based on our own well-being, it was based on what was tolerable to the home you grew up in. So here we are running around as emotionally unintelligent people, just trying to survive. And when a hard emotion arises, we try to get away from it. But the whole reason that emotion is coming up is because there's a purpose to it to help motivate you towards or away from something that you are craving. When you use it as a directive, that is the first instance where you are getting controlled or manipulated by your emotions because you are not acting as a CEO of this vessel you live in. You are acting as a victim to the energy it's experiencing because you don't like it. It's like the biggest temper tantrum that we can throw. And I do it. So, like, I'm with you. I've just realized sometimes I need to throw the temper tantrum and then I can step into the CEO position of my own brain. But the whole reason we have emotions, which is an literally a more valuable brain than our frontal cortex, is to help us feel motivated for survival, to help us get what we want, to help us conserve energy, and to help us avoid harm. So how are we supposed to manage ourselves if we don't allow emotions? That is why we feel controlled by them, because we only allow one that bypasses that, which is fear. We are afraid of failure. We're afraid of how we're going to be interpreted. We're afraid of letting someone down. We're just afraid. That's honestly what stress and anxiety is. So this is us ignoring the motivational energy. And listen, I don't expect you to like hard emotions. I don't. But there is no value, zero value in actually resisting them. Because whether you like them or not, that preference has never actually gotten rid of them. Have it. If you don't like sadness, do you never feel sad? No, of course not. It still comes. These emotions you're going to live with for the rest of your life. If your current pattern and how you respond to them and how you relate to them keeps you stuck in a pattern where you are feeling controlled, where you are feeling manipulated, where you're spinning around the energy over and over and you don't know what to do, well, that's not going to change unless you change how you are relating to them. And this is what's interesting. Our nervous system is the superhighway of information in our brain and body. What most people don't realize is that 80% of information comes from our body and goes towards our brain. But we want to intellectualize everything rather than understand the intelligence that lives in our body. And there's one of my favorite stories I read in a book, Emotional, which is written by Leonard Linkow, who's a physicist. He is the son of a Holocaust survivor, and he tells this story about his dad who was sneaking out of the camps with some friends to go get some stuff. And long story short, his clothes got caught while his other friends made it to the truck while he was trying to shimmy under the fence. By the time he had gotten free, the driver in the truck had started to pull away, and he had to make a decision. Does he run for the truck and potentially bring awareness to him and his friends and get them all killed? Or does he stay behind and let his comrades go on the mission without him, which was also a dangerous option? And if you can imagine, you have like a second to make that decision. So he decided he was going to run. He took two steps and his body froze and he fell to his knees. Moments later, he heard the screeching tires of a van filled with SS soldiers who caught his friends and killed them. What's interesting about this story, his brain, where the 20% of intelligence lives, told him go and run. But his body, where 80% of the intelligence lives, sensed something he wasn't yet conscious to. And the survival instincts that supersede our conscious awareness made a different decision for him and saved his life. Now, most of us aren't going to be in those situations where it is life and death, whether we listen to our body or not. But we are literally making ourselves weaker. We are literally acting dumber because we are afraid of the energy that our body experiences, not because the energy is so scary, but because the story our brain tells us about that energy, the meaning it adds, the assumptions we make, the interpretations we associate with it. It is a made up thing in our brain. And that is what keeps us controlled. That is what continues to make us feel manipulated. So, what actually is happening when we resist a hard emotion? If you think about it, these emotions, you've been experiencing them your whole life. Whether you allow them or not, they don't go away. You can prepare out the wazoo, still there, aren't they? They have a message for you. When we ignore the message, they don't go away, they get louder. That's what creates the spin cycle with anxiety. If you listen and then try and solve for whatever the thing is that your brain is telling you is the problem, you haven't even slowed down to see, do I understand what my brain is telling me is the problem? For instance, when my dad had back surgery in 2020, first, I hate how he always makes you say goodbye like he's gonna like pass away because he's scared of surgery, but that's not the point. So he did that, and I was an emotional wreck because of it. And as he was in the surgery, I was thinking about how I just wish he'd be healthier, how I wish he would listen to me. I am a health expert. Like, I know all this stuff. Not only was he generous enough to pay for my schooling, he literally created me. Like, I am here to help him, and he won't receive it from me. And it's not about me. And I know that. So there I was spinning around that, might I emphasize. And then I thought about it. Why am I so agitated by that? And when I was curious, my brain said, because you just want him to live as long as he can. Why? I asked again. Now, the answer might seem obvious, and it is because I want more time with him. But I can't control how he spends his time, what his habits are. But by taking a step back and thinking about what is the actual problem, the problem is I want more time with him. And my brain's solution was for him to be healthier. That's not the only way to get more time with him. And so while he was in surgery, I created a Evite, invited him to a virtual lunch, and we've been doing it every Tuesday for 6 years. Greatest understanding I have ever found. That's not because I resisted an emotion. That is because I recognized it, paused, went behind it to understand it, and tried to find the alternative solutions. When we resist an emotion, we increase the power it has over us. It is out of alignment with the energetic flow in our body. Think about happiness. You never resist happiness, and yet it seems so fleeting. But anger, stress, sadness, we resist those, and they seem to continually come back. The emotions aren't the problem. Our response to them is. We just need to recognize and slow down to understand them. And think about it from like a coworker standpoint, right? You don't like all your coworkers, yet you understand you still have to learn how to work with them. Just because you don't like them doesn't mean you don't have to work with them. Just because you don't like your emotions doesn't mean you don't have to figure out how to work with them. If you're listening to this, it's because you feel manipulated and controlled by your emotions. But really, it's by your brain because of how your brain is responding to your emotions. If you listen and work with them, with the coworkers you don't like, you figure out how to get the job done. There's an understanding in the workplace. You need to carry that understanding into your body. We have to learn how to be the CEO of our emotions, not the victim to them. They do not determine nor dictate what we do. But when we resist them, we give them the power to control us. Instead, take a step back and listen. Don't run. Don't try and predict or get ahead or over prepare or avoid or escape them. All of that is resistance, and they will just come back louder. We don't even understand them. So slow down and understand. And that is why I want you to learn how to be the CEO of your emotions. So here's a tool I want you to try and practice. I dare you to practice it. It is a conference table of emotions. You've likely been to a meeting before at a conference table. What happens? Everyone gathers, the different executives pile around, and then marketing chimes in. We need better systems. Sales has their idea of what's going wrong. We're not getting enough leads. And then tech has their own idea of what the problem is. And as a CEO, you ask questions, you understand, you validate, you take in the information at the end. Thank you all for your information. Based on where everything is right now, this is what we're going to do. The same thing is true for your emotions. Be the CEO. The different executives are the emotions that are calling for your attention at that moment. And treat them as an executive where you operate from a higher order space of the CEO. Listen to what they have to say. Just because they say things doesn't mean you have to agree with them. Here, we're scared that if we do this, that they're going to think that we fail. Okay, can you help me understand why that's the assumption? Is that we don't know what they're going to think, so why would you assume that they will interpret our mistake as a failure? Well, because everyone else has. Okay. I don't think everyone else has, but that makes sense that that's why you would get there. Then the next emotion. If we don't do it perfectly, we'll never get a promotion. Interesting. Where is that one coming from? Where is the data to support that? Well, we haven't gotten a promotion yet, and all I can see is mistakes. Okay, well, do you feel like you've done anything right? Like at our yearly review last year, we did get these compliments. Was that right? He's like, that's irrelevant because I haven't gotten the promotion. Okay, so we're still believing that in order to get the promotion, we have to be perfect. As I'm demonstrating this, I hope you can recognize I'm not disagreeing whether I agree or is actually irrelevant in it. I'm just listening, asking questions to understand, hearing what they have to say and taking in the information. When everyone is done, I can say, I understand our fear of failure. And it makes sense why we feel the urge to be perfect. But all we can actually do is our best. I don't know what they will interpret. I do not know if that will lead to a promotion. But what I do know is if it doesn't, I will go elsewhere where I will be valued because my best is good enough. And that is all anyone can ever expect from me or anyone else. So thank you for your information. And for right now, let's focus on our best and figuring out what that is. I literally taught this to my mentee from Think Big for Kids, a 19-year-old girl. In the last 3 weeks, she's been practicing it, and I saw her yesterday, and she came back and she said, Laura, I have freedom. I'm like, what do you mean? And she told me how she'd been acting as a CEO, practicing the conference table of emotions. She's like, I understand so much about them now. I don't even have to write it out anymore. She continued to share all the different things she's learned. Freedom and peace is what she was experiencing. If you are here and listening to this, it is because you feel controlled by your emotions and you don't have to be. It is not because you are doing something wrong per se. It's because you don't understand. When you understand, you have the opportunity to choose to make a different decision. But if you continue to resist the emotions because you don't like them, you will continue to feel controlled by them. Now, I don't make the rules on that. If I did, I'd change the rules. I just learn, listen, and share because not everyone wants to learn about emotions. But this is something that is built into the human system that we will experience for the rest of our lives. We can be at war with ourselves, or we can learn how to work with the coworkers inside of us that we don't always get along with. And if you don't know where to start, start in the challenger circle. It is the safest place for you to start. You literally get 30 days free to go through this, to practice the conference table of emotion. You get free coaching. I mean, guys, it is silly not to at this point. If you want a change, if you want to feel more empowered, if you want to feel freedom, if you want peace, if you are tired of feeling controlled, heavy, anxious, stressed, depressed, 30 days for free. If you don't like it, get out. What do you actually have to lose? That is my challenge to you because this is the essence of why so many people come to me. Emotions are not the enemy. They are the messengers. Our brain interpreting them, following unconscious scripts about how things should be or what we're supposed to do. It's all bullshit. And we're the ones believing it because we don't take a step back to understand. So that is my challenge to you. Fight for yourself. Fight to understand yourself. Give yourself the space to learn. Join us in the Challenger Circle. And if this resonates with you, share it with a friend who you know is struggling with the hard emotions because we don't need to struggle alone. Our power is in supporting each other and learning from each other. You just learned the conference table of emotions. If you start practicing it, the rest of your life, you can feel freedom and peace from an emotional standpoint. But only you can make that choice. So as always, thank you for listening. I hope you choose you. And most of all, I hope to see you in the Challenger Circle. Until next time. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of The Challenges of Change. If you're ready to stop stressing and reclaim your sense of worth, be sure to visit my website at www.changebychallenge.com. There, you'll find loads of resources, blog posts, and information on how to work with me, Laura, as your personal mindset coach. Remember, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Don't let burnout or any other obstacle hold you back from living your best life. Take the first steps towards positive transformation today. Thank you again for listening. Stay confident, stay inspired, and embrace the challenges of change. Until next time.